Good morning. I hope you're finding reasons to proclaim that this is the day that the Lord has made and that we will rejoice and be glad in it. As some of you know or may have guessed, Psalm 19 is one of my favorite psalms from the whole collection of psalms. I love the assertion that God's creation is good and that God's law is perfect. And it's not just because I love these things too, but there's an order that's implied here which gives me comfort and hope. This is God's sacred world. God made it and declared it good. And despite humanity's persistent efforts to dominate, pollute, and destroy it, it is still God's handiwork. God's law is still God's law, even if we ignore it or when we consciously act against it. God's law is just and life-giving. I don't know about you, but it can be difficult for me to plug into the daily news cycle, or maybe to unplug from it. I got up this past Monday morning and heard that 400 people had been injured in a shooting. 400! How is that even possible? It's easy to have my attention go from one crisis to the next crisis and feel like the world is a hostile and threatening place. And sometimes that anxiety can be so acute that I literally forget to give thanks for each day that I have been blessed with, and forget to be aware of the blessings of every day. A text like Psalm 19, which is brimming with God's goodness and a planned and ordered world, can be an antidote to the poison of hatred and violence. We cannot deny the existence of hatred and violence. As incredible as it may seem, a lone gunman in Las Vegas actually did kill 59 people and wound nearly 500 others. We can't simply stick our heads in the sand and pretend that that didn't happen, or just hope we can keep doing what we're doing and it won't ever happen again. But side by side with that narrative and the stories that we have heard about natural disasters in this country and other countries, are other stories. Stories of great and small acts of heroism and courage and selflessness. Strangers pulling strangers to safety. Neighbors helping their neighbors. Church groups gathering aid, food and water, child care, relief work to help people rebuild. These things are part of the story too, even though they rarely make headlines. So today I'm going to try and do something a little different in the sermon. This is something that my preaching professor at AMBS said never ever do. So I know she lives next door to Cal and Jean Graber. I'm glad they're not here today so that they can't tell her about this sermon. But here's what I'm going to do. I want to take some of your stories, start with some of your stories, and build a theological frame around that, rather than the other way around. These are stories that could have come from any number of you. I asked only a few of you. If you have stories that you want to share, I hope you have an opportunity to do that with people here at Creekside some other time. Let me give you a little context. Most of you have heard of Francis of Assisi. He was born to a wealthy family in the 12th century. His birth name was Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone, but he was known as Francesco. His is a riches to rags story. He was born into privilege, but he came to embrace poverty and simplicity. He founded the Franciscan Order of the Catholic Church, and he was canonized as Saint Francis and became known as the patron saint of the natural world and of animals. There's a little image of Saint Francis on your bulletin. If you have or have seen a garden statue of a guy in a robe, it's probably Saint Francis with a bird in his hand and woodland creatures around his feet. He wrote a famous prayer in praise of Brother Sun and Sister Moon. An adaptation of that text is in our blue hymnals. It's number 48, All Creatures of Our God and King. The feast day of St. Francis is October 4th. And in some Catholic parishes, there is a service called the Blessing of the Animals that happens in or around that day, on or around that day. Do any of you remember when Creekside had a Blessing of the Animals? There's still a plastic tub in the kitchen that's labeled Blessing of the Animals. This is when we came and sprinkled animals with holy water. We had dogs and cats and hamsters. Somebody even brought a goldfish in a bag to be sprinkled with holy water. It was quite a day. There's probably a reason why we're not still doing that service. Typically, the blessing of the animals is when people bring their pets to be sprinkled with water and blessed. Although when we did this at Creekside, I was holding my cat when David Bibby's dog showed up, and I got sprinkled with something stronger than water. Today, I want to talk about how our pets are a blessing to us. And that's what I've asked some folks to share about. This idea came to me because of, over the period of the past few months, I've been exchanging emails with Marcia Souls. I mentioned Marcia. She's the one who gave us that children's story book. She had seen one of my sermons online and emailed me to ask for prayer for herself and for her cat, Teddy, who had just been diagnosed with lymphoma. And Teddy looks like the cat in that book. He was obviously a significant part of Marcia's life. And so I wanted to give her an opportunity to share a little bit of that story, and reached out to some of you others as well. This is a picture of Marcia and her cat, Teddy. Here's what Marcia has to say about Teddy. Teddy was truly a blessing. I adopted him from the Arlington shelter in 2001. He greeted me at the door when I came home from work and always seemed to understand when I had a hard day or was sad. He slept by me at night. Even when he was losing his battle with lymphoma, he would still give me kisses in the morning. I adopted Ford. This is her new cat, Ford, 2 weeks after Teddy died. He is very active and loves to play. I hope that we will share many years together. Choir members here at Creekside will recognize Bruce Barwick's miniature schnauzer, Abby. Abby was an honorary member of the Creekside Choir. She was not much of a singer, but she was better behaved than some of the other members of the choir. That's my comment, not Bruce's. Abby was a wonderful companion for Bruce, and I got to visit one time and see how he had trained Abby to use their treadmill at home. Abby passed away this spring, and Bruce misses her very much. This is Karen and Joe Kohler, who have a license plate that says cat lover. These are with 2 of their shelter cats. And here's what Joe wrote for me. It's a glorious feeling to sit in easy chairs in our living room, feet up on the coffee table, and Christmas CDs playing in the background. But when cats climb up on our laps and fall asleep, that's when we have a glimpse of what heaven must be like. Anne Griffith could not share just one picture of her cats. She says, "For as long as I can remember, I have loved cats. I truly love all animals, but cats are easily my favorite. My longtime kitties, Rough and Tumble, were brothers from a litter of barn cats on John and Jean Mann's property. I got them in 1996. They were great at snuggling and making me feel loved. They rough-housed, would get into mischief, and play doing silly things. They taught me to be patient at times and listened to all my troubles without complaint or rolling their eyes. Cats can be way better company than people." My current kitties are a mix of outdoor ferals and strays. Piglet, DJ Skinny Boots, and Pumpkin Light are a strange lot. I'm pretty sure I will always have cats around to keep me company. This is Kurt Vardaman with Jazz, Kurt and Lisa's 3-year-old cockapoo. Lisa writes that when she and Kurt got their first dog, shortly after their 2nd anniversary, a close friend exclaimed that she would not have to worry about us now. We will always have someone besides ourselves to take care of. With the exception of about 5 months, Kurt and Lisa have always had at least one dog in their home over the last 28 years. Each dog has been a wonderful companion, as special and unique as people. Jazz keeps our daily routine from being dull. She is persistent when it comes to playtime and lifts our moods with her always happy nature and wagging tail. She loves to play tug of war, fetch, and take Kurt outside for a walk. But as she ages, she is learning that sitting on a lap and snuggling is a good way to soothe our hurried souls. And finally, this is my daughter Becca and our cat Sultan. Sultan is proof that you don't have to be smart in order to be happy. Becca is proof that you can be smart and happy. Sultan is a simple soul who just wants attention in order to be content. He has been draped on my shoulders for every sermon that I have written on my home computer, and he hasn't learned anything except gratitude. He never forgets gratitude. And there are some pretty smart people who haven't learned that yet. I appreciate the folks who shared stories and pictures. Pets get us out, slow us down, remind us that there's more to life than just ourselves, and provide companionship and playfulness in our lives. These are blessings that we all need. We need to be reminded in the midst of tragedy and disaster and grief that there is still order and goodness in God's creation. And although we have a place in that creation, we are not God. We cannot control the world, but we can affirm the goodness that God has placed there. There's more to this world than what we see in the headlines. This is the world that God loved so much that God sent his son Jesus to be part of it with us. Thanks be to God.